The day my wife stood beside me at my father's funeral, dressed in black and holding my trembling hand, I believed she was the only person keeping me from falling apart. She cried with my family, comforted my mother, and whispered promises that we would get through the darkest chapter of our lives together. I had no reason to doubt her. We had been married for 8 years, survived financial struggles, miscarriages, and endless disappointments. But while I was burying my father, someone else was quietly preparing to bury the truth. Before sunset, my entire life would collapse beneath a secret I never imagined possible. 3 days after the funeral, life slowly began returning to its normal rhythm, though nothing felt normal anymore. I buried myself in work to escape the silence waiting for me at home. Emily seemed unusually attentive, cooking my favorite meals and insisting we spend more time together. Looking back, I realized guilt often disguises itself as affection. At the time, I interpreted her kindness as love. Every smile she gave me strengthened my trust instead of weakening it. Meanwhile, hidden inside a locked drawer in her home office lay documents that could destroy our marriage forever if I ever discovered them. The first crack appeared unexpectedly when I received a call from an unfamiliar attorney. He politely asked whether I was still legally married to Emily Carter. Confused, I answered yes without hesitation. The lawyer paused for several uncomfortable seconds before apologizing and claiming he had contacted the wrong person. Something about his nervous voice refused to leave my mind. That evening I asked Emily whether anyone had contacted her regarding legal paperwork. She laughed naturally, kissed my forehead, and dismissed it as another scam. Her answer sounded convincing, yet the strange feeling inside my chest refused to disappear. Over the following weeks, small inconsistencies multiplied like invisible cracks spreading through glass. Emily suddenly guarded her phone with unusual caution. She frequently disappeared from mysterious business meetings despite working remotely. Credit card charges appeared from expensive restaurants she insisted she'd never visited. Whenever I questioned her, she always had a perfectly reasonable explanation. Individually, each excuse sounded believable. Together, they formed a puzzle that made no sense. My instincts urged me to investigate. But another voice reminded me that trust was the foundation of every successful marriage. I chose trust, never realizing trust was becoming the weapon used against me. Everything changed on an ordinary Tuesday afternoon when a courier mistakenly delivered an envelope addressed to Emily. Assuming it contained work documents, I placed it on the kitchen counter. Later that evening, curiosity overcame me after noticing the sender's name, County Marriage Records Office. My heartbeat accelerated. I knew opening another person's mail was wrong, yet something deeper warned me that this envelope contained answers I desperately needed. Inside was a certified copy of a marriage certificate issued just 4 months earlier. My wife's name appeared beside another man's, Daniel Foster. The wedding date fell exactly 6 months before our 9th anniversary. For several minutes, I simply stared at the document, convinced I was misunderstanding something impossible. Bigamy wasn't just betrayal, it was a crime. My hand shook violently as memories replayed inside my mind. On the same weekend listed as her wedding date, Emily had told me she was attending a 3-day corporate leadership conference in Chicago. I even drove her to the airport and kissed her goodbye. Instead, according to the official records, she had stood in another state exchanging wedding vows with a man whose name I had never heard before. Reality suddenly felt stranger than any nightmare I had ever imagined. I wanted to confront her immediately, but anger without evidence rarely reveals a whole truth. I carefully photographed every page before placing the certificate, exactly where I had found it. That night, Emily came home smiling, asking what I wanted for dinner, completely unaware that I had uncovered the secret capable of destroying everything we had built together. I forced myself to smile back, hiding the storm inside me. What I didn't know was that the truth was even darker than the marriage certificate suggested, and it would explode into the open at the worst possible moment, in front of everyone who mattered. The opportunity to uncover everything arrived sooner than I expected. My younger sister's engagement party was scheduled that Saturday, bringing together both families and dozens of close friends. Emily insisted we attend together, acting as though our marriage was stronger than ever. During the celebration, I quietly slipped outside after noticing her leave the ballroom to answer a phone call. Hidden behind a row of hedges, I heard words that froze my blood. "Everything stays quiet until Monday," she whispered. "After the inheritance clears, we'll disappear together." The voice on the other end wasn't a co-worker. It was Daniel. My father's estate had named me the sole beneficiary just weeks earlier. Paragraph 9. Instead of confronting her immediately, I contacted the attorney who had called me days before. After hearing my story, he finally revealed the truth. Daniel Foster had recently hired him during a property dispute, and while reviewing public records, the attorney discovered Emily appeared as the legal spouse of two different men. Believing it to be a clerical mistake, he tried verifying her marital status by calling me. Once I shared the marriage certificate in the conversation I had overheard, the attorney advised me to remain calm and collect every piece of evidence possible. The truth was no longer based on suspicion. It was supported by official documents and facts. Paragraph 10. The worst possible moment arrived on Monday morning inside a packed probate courtroom, where my father's estate was scheduled for final approval. Emily stood beside me wearing a gentle smile, pretending to be the devoted widow's daughter-in-law supporting her grieving husband. Just as the judge prepared to finalize everything, another attorney entered the courtroom with Daniel Foster. They claimed Daniel was Emily's lawful husband and argued that she had financial interests connected to assets she expected to receive through me. The courtroom fell completely silent. Every face turned toward Emily as confusion spread across the room. Her carefully constructed double life had collided with reality. Paragraph 11. Emily tried desperately to explain that everything had been a misunderstanding, but official records told a different story. The certified marriage certificate, financial transfers, hotel receipts, airline bookings, and months of hidden messages connected every missing piece. Daniel's expression changed the moment he realized she had never divorced me. He had believed her story that our marriage had already ended, and that paperwork was simply delayed. In an instant, both men she had deceived stood only a few feet apart. The courtroom wasn't filled with shouting. Instead, it was filled with something even more painful. Complete silence as every lie unraveled under undeniable evidence. Paragraph 12. The judge immediately suspended the proceedings and referred the matter for further legal investigation. My father's inheritance remained protected until ownership issues were resolved, leaving Emily with nothing she had hoped to gain. Daniel quietly walked away from her, without saying another word, realizing he had been manipulated just as completely as I had. Outside the courthouse, Emily finally begged me to listen, claiming fear, debt, and desperation had pushed her into making terrible decisions. For a brief moment, I remembered the woman I had once loved. But love cannot survive where trust has already been buried beneath deliberate deception. Paragraph 13. Nearly a year later, the divorce was finalized, the legal investigations had concluded, and my father's estate remained exactly where he intended it to be. Rebuilding my life wasn't easy, but every difficult step carried me further away from betrayal that had nearly destroyed me. Looking back, I no longer viewed Emily's secret marriage as the day my life ended. Instead, I saw it as a painful truth that freed me from a relationship built on lies I never knew existed. The worst possible moment had become the beginning of a better future. Sometimes the most heartbreaking truth is also the one that saves you from living a lifetime inside someone else's carefully crafted illusion.